Then we had a bit when
Good
Good luck. Good luck. Did we miss a week?
this Song of Songs, this
Oh, no, it's in the back.
Megillah steht das mit da. Esther, ja.
Mute.
Hi, Bernie. We missed you in Shul today.
What?
How you feeling? We missed you in Shul. I went to Yavna.
Play, playing hooky.
Manta.
I kept company with somebody else who must have been sick.
Oh,
Share the goodwill.
yes, yes. Okay. Okay, you were missed.
How was
Oh,
it?
that's right. You were there for the Rebbe.
It was nice. Yeah, it was very
How was
nice.
it? Hi,
Very
Manta.
nice. He spoke very nicely. It's good. He's good.
How
He's
do you know
okay.
him so well?
What's that?
How do you know him?
From Walter and Steve Ousdan. They're my agents.
Okay.
I was at his wedding. He made a wedding a few weeks ago in Israel. I went to the wedding. It's very nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. Hi, good luck.
Hello, Shiur.
Geht aber.
Good work, good work.
Hello.
Hi, Shavua Tov.
Bernie, do you feel better?
I'll get there. I'm getting better. Thank you.
Good. We missed.
Oh, where's mom? Okay. What was it?
What Pesach?
Okay. I think we finished Perek Dalid. I think we started Perek He. I think we started Perek He.
I think we did the first two psukim and
I
maybe
think
the
we're on
third.
Pasuk Gimel.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we're on Pasuk Gimel.
Yeah.
So this is the Perek where Esther now willingly goes to Achashverosh. And Hashem caused Chain to descend on Esther regarding Achashverosh, and the pasuk says, "Vayomer la melech malach Esther malka." How are you? I mean, what can I do for you, basically? Uma bakashaseich. What is your request? Ad chatzia malchus v'nosein lach. So the Gross says, remember, Esther had fasted for 3 days, and she's now suddenly appearing here, which somebody who appears without permission could be potentially killed. So, and Esther's face was pale from fasting. So perhaps she's being harassed by someone. Oh, I want to welcome Joy Volk to our Shiur.
She can't hear me.
Oh, she can't. How do you know she can't hear me?
I don't know.
Yes, I want to welcome Joy. Joy is a master laner of Megillah Esther for the women. It's very appropriate that she join our Navi as we go through. We're on Perek Hay, so there are tapes of all the shiur. We can always.
Joy's.
I'm here too.
Oh, hi, Mike.
Oh,
Welcome.
welcome.
Hello.
We don't see a nice picture of the two.
The camera's not working.
Okay.
Okay.
So we are what Perek Hay? What
On
pasuk?
Perek Hay Pasuk Gimel. Perek Hay Pasuk Gimel. So when Achashverosh says Ad Chatzia Machus, I would grant your request even up to half the kingdom. So the Gemara picks up on that and says Chatzia Machus lo kol machus, but not the whole Malchus. V'lo davar shechoytzetz l'Malchus, and not something that could sort of intervene in the Malchus. So my new binyan Beis Hamikdash. Remember, Vashti and Haman were involved in stopping the building of the Beis Hamikdash, which is actively going on. Remember, this is after Koresh has allowed the Jewish people to go back to Eretz Yisrael. We're going to go more into that in Ezra and Nehemiah, God willing, after Esther. But the building of the Beis Hamikdash had been stopped. And Achashverosh is signaling that that's not a request that I can honor. By the way, the astrologers that Achashverosh, the Rav Yonasan Eibshitz in the Aras Dvash says that Achashverosh was very frightened regarding rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash. His wise people who had seen in astrology that a Jew would take over his kingship, rule after him, and build the Beis Hamikdash. In the end, that's exactly what happened. Because Achashverosh and Esther have a child, Daryavish, who takes over after Achashverosh dies and resumes the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Pasuk Dalet. Vatomer Esther. So Esther's been asked, what does she want? So Esther says, Imal Melech Tov, if it would please the king, Yavo Melech v'Haman. So rather than come out with a request, she says, I want you and Haman, Hayom Lamishter Asher Sisilu. I'm preparing like a feast, and I want you and Haman to come. It's not the right time to ask that it would be better if he visited her, and during a social visit, he would be more relaxed, and then she would present the request. Now, Chazal give a whole bunch of reasons as to why, what is this idea that Esther has that she wants someone to be there? Number one, Esther wanted to set a trap for him, to surprise. So he would have no ability to respond to it, number one. Number two, Achashverosh was a very fickle person, and Achashverosh would commit himself to do something while Haman was there. Now, the most conspiratorial reasons is, of course, to arouse Achashverosh's jealousy. What all of a sudden why does the queen have this interest in Haman? Number two, it would put Haman at ease. And we're going to see that's exactly what happened. I'm the only one being invited. It sort of disarms him. And another thing that Chazal say, Esther wanted to show Klal Yisrael that she's sidling up to their enemy. Why? And that way they would daven harder and do tshuva harder. They think that they have, an ally, in the palace, but by inviting Haman, maybe their tefillas were flagging, and this would increase it. Now, interesting, if you look at the Yavo HaMelech VeHaman Hayom, the first letter, Yud Hey Vav Hey, it's the name of Hashem. So we know the name of Hashem does not appear directly in the Megillah. We see it in various hints. We saw it last week when we talked about the Melech. When it doesn't say HaMelech HaChashverosh, and it just says HaMelech, that's usually a reference to Hashem. But here also is there are a number of places where Hashem's name is sprinkled. Yavo HaMelech VeHaman Hayom. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. So that's another remez that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. Pasuk Hey. Vayomer HaMelech Ma'aru es Haman lasos es dvar Esther. Achashverosh gives an order to hurry up, bring Haman. Vayavo HaMelech veHaman ela mishteh asher asta Esther. On that day, Melech Achashverosh and Haman come to the mishteh that Esther is preparing. And Achashverosh sees that Esther is distraught, and that's one of the reasons why he's hurrying up with Haman. You notice Vayavo HaMelech veHaman ela mishteh is in the same pasuk as the pasuk previously. That means it's a sign that they came very quickly.
But it's also interesting to see it's a Mishnah Esther, that it's Esther who's telling Haman to come, rather than the Melech requesting him, which means she was trying to show that she had a certain authority over Haman.
Okay, and it's also like we said before that Esther thought Achashverosh would be more relaxed at a social event that she's the host of. No, it's Esther's mishteh because Achashverosh would be more relaxed, and then she would present the request. Or, as Bernie is saying, to show maybe that she has authority over him in some ways. But that I gave the reasons why Chazal intuit that why Esther wanted Haman there. Primarily, the main role is to instill jealousy, because we'll see in the end. Remember, Haman falls on the bed of Achashverosh, on the bed of Esther, and this sort of inflames him. So this begins this whole process of jealousy. Pasuk Vav. Vayomer HaMelech l'Esther b'mishteh hayai. Again, the Melech speaks to Esther, Mashel asech v'nasein lach. What is your request? It will be given to you. Uma bakashasech ad chatzei machus v'seyas. Esther was risking her life by going to Achashverosh without permission. And Achashverosh realizes that there's some request that Esther has. So Achashverosh wants that to be revealed to him. You notice there's a double language here. She'el aseich. Oh, by the way, Tzvi Eilat last week asked a good question where it says, Gamani v'narosai atzum kain. That Esther, when is discussing with Mordechai, says, I and my na'aros are are going to fast. What do we need to know that the Na'aros, who are these Na'aros? So there's machlos. So the Ma'am Loaz brings some sources about that. One is that these were they were not Jewish. They were handmaids, but she wanted them to go along with this so that when she shows up to Achashverosh and Achashverosh sees that she's pale and she says that I fasted for 3 days in anticipation of this, that the Naros would support her claim, that they would be like witnesses. That's one pshat. The other pshat is that the Na'aros were Jewish girls. If you remember, Vashti also had Jewish maidservants that she made them work on Shabbos. But Esther, when she came into the palace, she, of course, again, without revealing that she's a Yehudiyah, made sure that they didn't work on Shabbos, but they fasted with Esther because they were Jewish. So that's good question that Tzvi asked. Okay.
By the way, Ernie, just
Yes.
I don't know if you know Rabbeinu Bachya on Pasuk Hey. It says Yavo HaMelech v'Haman Hayom, that she used that specific connotation because it's Shem Hashem in the first letters.
Yeah, we discussed that.
Okay.
You were not on the thing yet?
No, I was not.
Okay.
Okay, maybe.
So we said yes, Yud K Vav K,
Okay.
that there's sprinklings of Hashem, remozim. It's nothing, but just like the whole story of Esther is, we don't see Hashem directly, but we see him indirectly. So this is one of the places we said that the name of Hashem is sprinkled. Shkoyach. Here it says she'elasech uvakashasech. Right? So what's the difference? What's the difference? So Rav Ullman, he's one of the Dayanim in Yerushalayim, says a she'ela is something very small. He has a raya from Malachim Beis that we learned, Bathsheba, when she approaches Shlomo Melech, says, she'ela achas ktana anochi she'alta mi'itach. So she'ela is a very small request. A bakasha is something big. Later on, she's going to say, nafshi b'she'elasi v'ami b'vakashasi. It's a life-threatening issue. There's another pshat. A she'ela is something that you're personally requesting. A bakasha is a petition that you're doing on behalf of other people. That's how the Gra learns. By the way, the Gra also brings that this pasuk vav that we just learned, is exactly half of the psukim in the Megillah. I don't know the significance of that, but that we are literally at the half point when it comes to psukim. So pasuk zayin. Vatan Esther vatomar she'elasi uvakashasi. She answers and says, my request and my petition. By the way, the Targum here clearly says that I'm not asking for half the kingdom, nor my requests are not for money, and my request is not for rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash. So right away, she puts him at ease. Pasuk Ches. If I have found favor in the eyes of the king, and if it's good for the king, to answer my personal question and my petition. Again, she says, Yavo HaMelech ve'Haman, ela mishteh asher e'aseh lahem. I'm going to throw another part that I want you and Haman to come to. Umachar e'aseh kidvar HaMelech. And it will be tomorrow, I will respond to the king as to what my requests are.
But sorry, if he didn't know that she was Jewish, why would she bring up the Beit HaMikdash?
The Beit HaMikdash is a political question that's ongoing. Remember, they already started building the Beit HaMikdash. Vashti and Haman had sent letters to stop it. So she knew that Achashverosh is interested in that, into that question. And she says, I'm not interested in any of this. I think she probably thought that this is on his mind. I'm not asking about it.
Yeah, but it must be it must have been a big political thing at that time. And
Well, remember the three stories we had about the 70 years. Belshazzar did it, and then by Daniel they did it, that they made parties out, and then he did it, and the base of Midrash didn't, hadn't been built when they brought the things out. So it was in the air, but so far, Esther is still keeping her disguise.
So interesting, if you look at the wording in Pasuk Vav, it says Mishta Hayayin. So that must have been come over for drinks and hors d'oeuvres.
Yes.
But then two psukim later, it's a Mishta Asher Asasa that she will prepare a major meal. So in the Mayam Lois, it describes that her plan was. He hadn't, remember, Esther had not been invited to see Achashverosh for 30 days. So she was worried about his attraction to her diminishing. So she wanted to make sure that she would become endeared to him again. So she invited her, Achashverosh a second time to solidify the relationship again.
Mm-hmm. Again, we're going to see a few points regarding this issue. You notice she mentions Achashverosh and Haman in the same way. Yavo HaMelech ve'Haman, right? So again, that's arousing jealousy. That's how the Manos HaLevi wants to say. Rashi says that Achashverosh has been pestering Esther. Who are her people? Who is she? Where does she come from? And basically, Rashi promises tomorrow I will reveal who I am and who my people are. The Even Ezra says, what's this whole, I have a first party, then a second party. In the first party, Esther does not see any hint that all the fasting and the tefillahs have made any difference. Achashverosh doesn't say anything. Now, in the second day, we know what's going to happen. Haman is going to be schlepping Mordechai around on a horse in robes. She's going to be much stronger then because she sees an effect of the tshuva and the tefillah that Klal Yisrael are doing. So she's sort of putting things off because she's waiting for a sign.
But Haman becomes suspicious as well. He says, what is this? Why am I being invited? He says, he knows that there's a plot. He knows that there's a relationship that Esther has with Mordechai, lived in his home. So, you're very happy you're being invited.
Right. It's just, Bernie, it's just the opposite. Haman is a ish gaiva, and this is emboldening him. We're going to see many examples of psukim where the fact that he's going to see himself as the only person invited. So yes, a smart person might have thought like what you're explaining, but Haman's gaiva gets the best of him, and he sees it all for his benefit.
So I still remember Machon Gold. So they said that the reason Haman came to in the middle of the night, and Achashverosh got nervous that this guy's trying to take my position. I mean, who should go in the horse? Me. So that's why Achashverosh already was starting to get angry at him because he thought he's ready to take over a revolution, take over my kingdom.
Well, Esther is correct. When we get to the next, we may get there tonight. The Balaylahu Nadadash Nasamela, and Haman shows up. We're going to see Midrashim that Achashverosh was afraid that he was going to be assassinated by Haman. That's absolutely correct that you remember that from Machon Gol. So he begins to, but here's another remez that the Medrash tells us. You notice she uses the word machar e'esek idvar hamelech. So the Medrash says kol zaru shel Amalek always falls b'machar. It says when Amalek comes to attack Bnei Yisrael and Moshe commands Yoshua to lead an army, he says machar anochi nitzav al rosh hagiva. There also, it says tomorrow I'm going to stand on the head of the mountain, and that's where they put rocks on. When Moshe's hands went up, the army was victorious. When Moshe's hand, the word also there is machar, and then by Shaul, when Shmuel tells Shaul to gather the army to fight Amalek, it says ka'et machar esh lecha lecha ish, and here also it says machar esek idvar hamelech. So the machar is somewhat connected to Nefilas Amalek. And the Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld says that's what the Satan does. That's the koch of Amalek. What does it say? Asher korcha baderech. Kuf reish, right? Kor. So some say the word kor comes from mikre. They just showed up out of nowhere. No plan. But others learn the word kar from the word cold. That Amalek cooled us off. We were on a high. We were on a spiritual high. After Kriyas Yamsuf, and all of a sudden now, we have Amalek tries to cool us off. So the Satan works the same way. A person wants to do good. He says, "Do it tomorrow." The Satan, don't do it today. You have a cheshek to do something good, and he cools you off. Okay. Pasuk Tes. So Haman is happy and of good heart. But immediately the Chirot Haman et Mordechai b'shar Melech. Again, Haman is confronted with his nemesis Mordechai, who's at the gate teaching Torah. Remember, he was placed there. V'lo kam v'lo zam mimenu. And Mordechai doesn't move an inch, doesn't bow down. Vayimalei Haman al Mordechai chema. It causes Haman to go into extreme anger. Sameach, says the Menos Levi, because he's received a great honor. Tov Lev, because he dined well. And Bernie's correct. When Haman first arrives at Esther's banquet, he's apprehensive. And he's questioning me. They've just issued an edict concerning the Jews. All of a sudden, he's being invited to this party. So he's suspicious. Bernie was right. Yeah. However, he was flattered here. So all the suspicion left him. And he was unprepared for what happens at the next Mishnah.
He also couldn't understand Mordechai. He's showing disrespect, and on the other hand, he knows that all of his people are condemned to be killed. What is Mordechai doing that? You're rubbing dirt in the face of your enemy who's about to eliminate you, and he's not showing any respect.
Right, so that's just, you're inflaming Haman's anger. So Haman says, Achashverosh made me the highest officer in the land. The wife of Achashverosh is showing me great kavod. So there's no one greater than me. Now, it's true that Haman understood that Mordechai had a relationship with Esther. He didn't know that she was Jewish, but he rationalized that maybe Mordechai's refusal to bow down to him has something to do with the connection with the queen. But based on this party they just had, it shows that Esther really doesn't care for Mordechai. Only Haman was invited, not Mordechai. So that it makes it even more angry for Mordechai not to bow down to him. Didn't even move. And it's the first time, says the Yosef Lekach, that Haman had seen Mordechai, or that Mordechai had seen Haman since the edict had been announced. Now, Haman was the leading officer in the country. To just kill Mordechai was beneath his dignity. But now that there's an edict out there that all the Jews are going to be killed, and everyone knows, or it was common knowledge, that it had been instigated by Mordechai's refusal to bow. And here, Mordechai is still refusing to bow, not even to move. So fine, it's his Jewish religion that prevents him to bow, but he can't ignore Haman entirely. He should have shown some fear. The Jewish people are about to be exterminated. Haman thinks Mordechai is a very arrogant person. So therefore, it gets into Haman's mind that he wants to kill Mordechai before the decree. Remember, the decree is not for Yud Gimel Adar until the next year. It's another 12 months. Right now, we're on the first day of Pesach. He doesn't want to wait until that time to kill Mordechai. So he settles now on this plan. He wants to kill Mordechai. The Meforshim discuss this thing about Mordechai being at the Shar Melech. The Medrash says that Mordechai was teaching Torah to the children at the Shar Melech. And he had changed clothes away from his sackcloth in order, because you teach Torah b'makom simcha. Later on, in Pasuk Yud Beis, it's going to say, Vayoshev Mordechai al Shar Melech. And the Rashi will bring the Medrash that says, Sheshav l'saku v'taniso. That again, he put on sackcloth. So you see, Mordechai changed his clothes. Now, in teaching Torah, he's wearing special clothes to teach Torah. Later on, he puts back on the sackcloth. Why? Limud Torah has to be besimcha. The Gemara in Shabbos Lamed Amud Beis says, "Harava malamed talmidim tzarich lios besimcha." You have to be in a happy mood when you're teaching Torah. The Medrash says that Mordechai lo amad milifnei, he didn't stand up or move. What he did is poshat es rogel yamanis v'yitziglo shtar mechira shenim karlo b'kikar lechem. Remember the Medrash we talked about, that Mordechai and Haman were sent as officers to do a battle, and Haman had wasted all the money, and he had no money to feed his army, and he had to sell himself to Mordechai for bread. And this is what Mordechai shows Haman now, and that's what causes Haman to get so angry, because he was shown this star mechira that he had sold himself as never to Mordechai. And he didn't stand even for kavod. Normally you stand up in front of an officer. He didn't. This was all Mesiras Nefesh, even though, remember we said last week that Haman had kicked Daniel for not showing kavod, and he killed him. Still, Mordechai doesn't want to show any kavod to this Russia. Why so much? Why does Mordechai going to such a degree? Says Rav Kotler in Mishnah's Ravaru, Shorish chet shol shebiglolo lo ishlimis b'chias amolek k'fi shnitztav al yidei Shmuel Navi haya. Why is this event happening, Bichlal? This extermination decree? Because Shaul had been commanded to wipe out Amalek and left Agag alive. And Haman was born from that. Why? Ki aresi esa'am. He told Shmuel, I was fearful of what the people would do to me. So Hifsidis Amalucha. The only person above a melech has to be Hashem. And Shaul was afraid of human beings, so he lost the Malucha. Here, Mordechai, by showing no fear, he had no Moira Upachat from Haman, and he eventually was Makabal Malucha, right? Because Mordechai takes over the house of Haman, the wealth and his position, and this is part of the correction of the sin of Shaul that led to the whole problem. I think that's a nice limud. Pasuk Yud. Vayisapak Haman. Even so, Haman restrained himself. He held himself back. Vayavoel beso. He goes home. Vayishlach vayaveos oavav vezer shishto. So he sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh. Rashi says he was afraid to take revenge without permission. Now, Zeresh is extremely cruel and was always advising Haman. And listen to the way the Medrash learns. They knew Mordechai was Jewish. Haman has to come up with a punishment to kill Mordechai in a way that Hashem had never saved somebody before. So, for example, Chanane Mishol Vazarya had been thrown into the Kivshon Ha'esh. We learned that in Sefer Daniel. And a malach was sent to save them. So Jews had been saved from fire. Daniel had been thrown into a lion's den. And Daniel was saved from being killed by the lions. Yosef had been thrown into a pit, right, with snakes, and was also saved from there. Mordechai, Klal Yisrael had went into the Midbar, and they had many trials and tribulations there, and they were protected. Shimshon had his eyes gouged out by the Plishtim, yet he was able to take revenge against the Plishtim. Hashem helped. So Zeresh advises Haman to hang Mordechai, because we never find any precedent in Tanakh that Hashem had saved somebody from hanging. Now, the Rav Levi Miberditchev, the Kedushas Levi, a Hasidic Torah, that when he says that when Esther had invited Haman, and Haman had eaten some food, there was a little Kedusha that went into him. That's why it says, it refers to Kedusha, right? A Navi also doesn't get Nevuah unless you're Besimcha. And it says this, Vayisapak Haman, how did Haman, to hold back anger requires a certain midah. How does all of a sudden Haman have this? Through the eating at the Mishnah of Esther, there was a little Kedusha. And then, not only that, but Haman's great fall, in part of this story, there's Miskadei Shem Shamayim. Says the Kedushas Levi, the Gemara says, Banav Limdu Torah Barabim. Great-grandchildren of Haman taught Torah publicly. Yiskadol v'yiskadol Shmo Agadol. And that was a repayment for the fact that there was some Kiddush Hashem that occurs through the travails of Haman. I think that's a fascinating shot. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayisaper lehem Haman es kvod Rov v'rov banav. Haman recounts how wealthy he is, how many children he has. Ves kol asher gidlo hamelech, and the fact that the king had promoted him. Ves asher nisol asarim of the hamelech, and he was placed in charge of higher than any of the officers. By talking about his great wealth and fortune, he was depressed because he had seen Haman. He wanted to get out of his depressed mood. The Alshich says that there are three things that make a person happy: wealth, children, and greatness. Greatness meaning he's in a powerful position. Haman wanted to claim he had all three, and therefore it would be easy for him to dispose of Mordechai. He has plenty of money to bring about Mordechai's downfall. His children were very capable. He has power above the officials, giving him power to kill anyone he wishes. And even the Malka Esther would not save Mordechai, because I was invited and not Mordechai. Now, eventually Haman is proven wrong in all of these. All of his wealth ends up with Mordechai. His children are all hung. And even before Haman is killed, the king humbles him by making Haman drag Mordechai around the city in royal clothes. And eventually Esther points out that Haman is the one that's causing her people to be killed. Machlokes in the Gemara, Megillah Tesvav Amud Beis. How many children did he have? Amarav Shloishim. He had 30 sons. Asara Mesu, 10 died, I guess, naturally. Asara Nitlu, 10 were hung. The Asara Machzirin Apsachim, 10 ended up having to beg as beggars from the doorway. There's a machlokas. The Rabbanan say that there were 70 that went around the doors collecting. Others say he had 208 because the word rov in gematria, rov begematria is 214, but it says verov ksiv. Right? It doesn't say with a vav. It's chaser. Vav reish bey. So it's only 208. Okay, that's the Gemara. Pasuk Yud Beis. Vayomer Haman af lo hivia Esther malka ima lamelech el hamishte asher asasa kimos. Haman points out the only person that Esther has invited is me. The Gabla Machar, and the second Mishteh that Esther is preparing, Ani Karulai Mamelech. It's only me and the king that's invited to the second party. Again, showing Haman's vanity. And again, the Alshich says, showing that Esther does not support Mordechai. This special intimate banquet where she's going to make a special request or answer requests from Achashverosh, and he gets to be there. So that's very important to him. The Medrash here says, Arbohem shepatchu ba'af v'avdu ba'af. Right? Here she's, Rabbi Yober Haman af lo hevia. So there are 4 people in Tanakh that opened up their statements with af and they were destroyed with af. The Nachash, right? The snake, Sarah Oifim, the baker by Yosef, va'adas korach v'hama. Nachash. T'chsiv af ki amar Elokim. The Sarah Ophim, the baker, af ani b'chalomi. Right? What happens to the baker? He gets killed. Adas korach af lo el eretz. And Haman af lo evia. And when we say, al tiftach pela satan, that a person's words, I've heard Walters always tells me a story about this, that you got to be careful what you say, because what you say, it has koach to be mashpi on the future. In the first Mishnah, Haman is mentioned after the Melech. Right? And Esther says, Yavo Melech ve'Haman el Mishnah. But when Esther invites them to the second Mishnah, it says, El Mishnah asher eseh lahem. It made them equal, like I said before. Another jibe. First of all, it says because the opposite makes Achashverosh more angry, jealous, and made Haman more haughty. So here's the important pasuk, Yud Gimel. V'chol zeh einenu shaveh. Everything that I've recounted, my wealth, my children, I don't care about any of it. V'chol eit asher ani ro'eh et Mordechai Yehudi yoshev b'shar melech. Because I see, as long as I see Mordechai sitting at the king's gate, nothing else is worth it to me. I mean, his wife, his family, his friends, they knew all about the things he's telling them. He was saying that all up just to show how frustrated he was at Mordechai's lack of dignity to him. He doesn't, and by the way, you notice Haman doesn't say to his wife, I'm not upset at Mordechai that he doesn't want to bow down to me. That looks petty. It just says that, he's on, the Mam Lois says that he was telling his wife, Mordechai the Jew has no right to be given the honor of sitting at the king's gate. It's anti-Semitism again. The Meforshim bring here that people who run after worldly pleasures, including wealth or honor, there's no satisfying that. And that's what the word einenu shoveh. It has no value. We know the famous Gemara, Yesh lo mana ratza masayim. A person has $100, he wants $200. You're never going to be satisfied. We know Ezeu Ashir Asamech Bechelko. But pursuit of worldly goods is really an einenu shoveh. And you remember, what did we say Mordechai was doing at the gate? He was teaching children Torah. And he was concerned, Haman, that the schus of Limud Torah, especially with children, he would not be able to overcome the Jewish people. Now, we just mentioned a remez in the name of Hashem. It says, "V'chol zeh einenu shoveh li." So if you take the last letters, Hey Vav, it's the name of Hashem. Ze Einenu Shoveli, again, is the name of Hashem. Again, we're giving a hint that even though right now it looks like Haman's on top of the world, he has all the children, he has all the wealth, and he's reaching his summit, his peak. This is the denouement will start now. It all comes from Hashem, and if Hashem wants to lower him, he will be lowered. The word ze, einenu shoveli, the last letter, hey, vav, hey, yud. Name of Hashem. Okay. Pasuk Yudal. Vatomer lo Zeresh ishto v'chol ohava. So Zeresh and the friends respond. Yasu eitz gavoa 50 amah. Build a gallows, 50 amasai. Uva voker, the next tomorrow morning when you go to this mishteh, emor lamelech, tell the king. V'yisluas Mordechai alav, and you will hang Mordechai on the gallows. And uvo im hamelech lamishter samech, you can even do it before you go to the mishteh with Esther. Vayitava davar lifnei Haman vayasa eitz. Haman likes the advice, and he immediately built the gallows. Again, we talked about that. His opinion, his advisors had told him that no Jew had ever been saved by Hashem from hanging. He followed this. 50 amas high is very high. The Maimer Mordechai, one of the Meforshim, says it was to allow Haman to be able to see Mordechai dangling from there while he was feasting with the king. The Medrash says the following. A 50-foot beam, by the way, an amma is really 2 feet. So it's a 100-foot beam. So that's a pretty hard thing to find. So his son Parshandasa, he was the governor where Har Ararat was. What's notable about Har Ararat? That's where the Teva of Noach had settled. So apparently they knew where the Teva was, and they got one of the long beams that Noach had used, a 50-foot long beam, and that was the beam that the Parshandasa, one of the sons of Haman that we mentioned when we mentioned the 10 sons, when we hang them, sent the beam to hang Mordechai on. By the way, Haman did not undress. He didn't go to sleep. He immediately went to the carpenters to build the gallows. And his sons were helping with hammers and they were singing. Zeresh was playing musical instruments. And she arranged a feast where they could celebrate the hanging of Moshe, the hanging of Mordechai.
Ernie,
Yes.
something in timing doesn't work. How far was Ararat from Shushan? That they could bring it in a few hours to build it.
No, it was there before. Obviously, that pole was there before. They built the gallows afterwards. I don't think the pole was there before. It was there.
The Medrash says that Parshandasa found him a beam.
But it doesn't mean it found him there right away. It found before. He was planning this.
Yeah, but remember, it's all happening now. It's the 15th day.
I hear. But
night is going to be the night of the 16th, and the next morning, right? It's all going to happen in the next day. Okay, like Walter says, the governor had it in a warehouse in Shushan. It's a good question. Right, so we went over this medrash about all the various punishments that had done. By the way, the Gemara in Chulin, Kuf Lamed Tes Amud Beis, Haman min haTorah minayin. The Gemara many times will ask, where like Tchias HaMesim Minator Minayin. Where's the source for Tchias HaMesim? So the Gemara asks, Haman Minator Minayin. Where's the source? Hamina eitz asher amarti lecha. When Adam and Chava eat from the tree of life, they say Hamina eitz. So the word Hamin, Hey Mem Nun, is the same words as Haman. Again, saying that the whole connection of Haman is back to the Nachash that caused Adam HaRishon to sin.
That's not.
There's a humorous medrash that Mayam always quotes. When the gallows was finished, Haman climbed up to the top and almost as a joke tried on the rope. He wanted to see if it was the right height. At that moment, a heavenly voice declared, "It's a perfect fit, Haman." And that's where he ended up.
The generations of that time knew that Hashem had brought a Mabul. They also knew that when Hashem overturned stone, he left a memory, the pillar of salt, right? Because Zecher Asal Niflosov. Hashem makes a memory of various niflos. So Daryavesh made a klal against Haman. This is going to be in Ezra, right? In Sefer Ezra. That he said, Te'akir korme beso v'miseo oso aliyah. That he made a klal of that a person would be hanged on that beam. And Daryavesh is the son of Esther. He made that statement 4 years in the future. Because under his rule, the returnees to Judea started rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash. There were people, the Shomronim, at the time that, again, were trying to prevent them from building. So the Jews turned to Daryavesh. The Goyim turned to Daryavesh and again wanted Daryavesh to stop the building. And Daryavesh did not agree to them. He allowed the Jews to continue building. And he made a klala at that time. Whoever changes from what's written here, a beam should come out of his house. So it was a klala. So it retroactively worked on Haman. Because he had prevented the building of Beis HaMikdash. So Daryavesh made a curse in the future that anyone who prevents the building of the Beis HaMikdash, a beam will come out of his house, he'll be hanged there. So it happened 4 years before. The Ramat Vali wants to say that, we have fellow religionists that they also use wood, right? The person was crucified on wood. And a lot of it starts from here. It says, Haman atzmo vizgalgel b'Yeshua Notzri, u'vasof nitle, gamu k'moshe nitlo Haman. So this is just the derech sod. They're connecting the hanging of Haman to what happened in the future. Now, the Yaros Dvash, Rav Yonis and Eibshitz, when it says Uvavoker emor lamelech in the morning, when bisman kriyash mashal shachris. Now, it says that Yosef based Esav Lakash, that the antidote to Esav is strong, Kuf Shin. But Kuf Shin can also be Kriyashma. Kish Yisrael koin Kriyashma b'chavana Esav Nasa Lakash. And Amalek is from Esav. So that's why we are Soimech Geula L'Tfila. So Haman wanted to wake up early before Klal Yisrael would be able to daven Kriyashma. But Mordechai was reading Kriyashma at the time that Haman came to put him on the sus. And he never stopped. And this all delayed Haman from doing what he wanted to do. So Kriyashma is what saved Mordechai. There's some other midrashim that we won't go into, but I think we covered Parakeh pretty well. Any other comments, questions? The Aros. We will, of course, do Parak Vav, Balai Lahu, Nadadash Nasamelech next week. Any other questions or comments?
Shkoyach.
Okay, very good, everybody.
Eric.
Have a great week,
Thank
everybody.
you.
So.
Well.
Good talk.